Hi, intermediate theory students. My name is Roxanne McGahey, and I'd like to welcome you to Music Theory Online, and in particular, the Intermediate Theory program. As you know, what happens is I will present the various concepts to you through these modules. After you've completed watching the module, then you have assignments to do that you'll then send to me for correction. So let's get started with our very first module. The first part of our course is going to be a bit of a review. Harmony has so many different elements to it, and of course we need to build on previous knowledge. So the best place to start is by reviewing what you already know. When we're working with chords, we normally want to be able to tell what the function of the chord is. So the function is normally described by the Roman numeral, and that's written below the staff. So that would be, for example, in C major, a D minor chord would be a 2 chord. The other thing that we can do is also describe the root and the quality chord symbols as letters placed above the staff. When you're putting the letters above the staff, it really isn't telling you how that chord functions within the key, but it tells you exactly what that chord is. So again, if you're looking at a D minor chord, it could be a 2 in C major. It's also going to fall in other keys, but it will have a different function. The third element that's really important is the figured bass. And the figured bass gives us the intervallic structure of what the chord is. So the figured bass is telling us if it's a 7 chord or if it's a triad. It's telling us if it's in root position, first inversion, second inversion, or third inversion. It's also letting you know if there's any accidentals to add to that chord above the bass note. On the screen, you see all of the chords built in the key of C major. So let me play the C major scale first. So within the key of C major, our 1 chord is a C major chord. The 2 chord is a D minor chord. But often we'll find that we're using a 7th on the 2, which is a 2-7, or in this case, a D minor 7. The 3 is an E minor chord. The 4th is F major. The 5th is G major. And frequently we have the 5-7, which is a G7. The 6th is an A minor chord. And the 7th is a B diminished chord. When we're looking at the chords that are built in minor keys, there are a few more options when we're looking at minor keys because we have 3 forms of the minor scale. We have the harmonic minor scale, the melodic minor scale, and the natural minor scale. Again, we'll stay with C, but this time C minor. And in C minor, the 1 chord is a C minor chord. The 2 chord is it can be a D diminished chord, or it can be a D minor chord. If it's a D diminished chord, that means the 6th of the chord is not raised. If it's a D minor, then that 6th note is raised. And then we have the D half diminished 7th. It sounds like this, because we have that A flat. We have a 3 chord, which is a major chord in a minor key. I think this is hilarious because the 3 is a major chord in a minor key and a minor chord in a major key. In this case, it's an E flat major chord. If you raise the 7th note of the scale, which is the norm. If you're raising the leading note, then it becomes an E flat augmented chord. And you can see by the figured bass, we have a 3 with a plus, and the plus means augmented, and the natural 5 means that the fifth of the scale is raised to a natural. Then the fourth degree of the scale, we have F minor or F major. Again, if the sixth of the chord is raised, we could have F major. In the 5 chord, we have G major, which is the norm. You're normally going to have that as a major chord. And again, that accidental, the natural, is telling you that the third of the chord is raised. The G minor chord, and then we have our dominant seventh, or 5/7, which is also the G7, and our seventh is raised. The dominant seventh in a major key or the tonic minor key is identical. It's the same chord in C major or in C minor. Then we have our A flat major chord, which is a 6th chord, a major chord, which again we have it as a major chord in a minor key and a minor chord in a major key. If we raise the 6th degree of the scale, we end up with an A diminished chord. Notice in the figured bass, you have a natural sign in front of the 6. That means that in this case, the root of the chord, which is on the bottom, is raised. The next chord is a natural 7 diminished, or a B diminished 7th, because we have our raised leading note. But we could also have our leading note not raised, which would make a B flat major chord. And then we have our B diminished 7th. So you can see in minor keys, you do have quite a few options. As I was mentioning before, the figured bass is also going to tell us which inversion the chords are in. Always for first inversion chords, we have a superscript 6, which means that the 6th of the chord is above the root. In our first example, in C minor, we have E flat on the bottom. And if you count 6 notes above E flat, that would be C. So your chord must have a C above the bass, which it does. When you see a 1/6, you know it's in first inversion. The next example is a diminished 7th chord in first inversion. And in this case, you see there's a natural in front of the 6th, which means that that 6th above the bass is being raised. When a chord is in second inversion, the figured bass is 6/4. In our first example, we have a 1/6/4 in C minor, or a C minor with a G bass. In the next example, we have a 5/6/4, and of course the 6th is raised. So this is a G major chord with a D in the bass. When you're showing the root and the quality chord symbols, they're always written above, and they're always written the same way. Let's take a look at these 7th chords that are on your screen. In C major, we have a 2/7, or a D minor 7. In our first example, we know it's a 2/7 because, of course, we have a 7 in our figured bass. So we have a root position chord. In the next measure, it's in first inversion, and we know it's a first inversion chord because it has a 6/5. When you see a 6 by itself, it's in first inversion. If you see a 6/4, you know it's a second inversion triad. And if you see a 6/5, it's going to be some sort of a 7th chord. The root quality chord symbol for this is D minor 7 F, because F is the bass. In our next chord, it's a 2/4/3, which is a second inversion chord. And we know then it's a 4-3 because there's a fourth above the root, which is D, and there's a third above the root, which is a C. And that's a D minor 7, A. And in the last one, we have a 2-4-2. The 2-4-2 is a third inversion seventh chord, and it's still a D minor 7, but it has a C in the bass. And I'll just play. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. And of course, we want to hear it come back to the root, don't we? Let's look at our next example in C minor. Now remember, the C minor and its tonic major, C major, would have the very same dominant seventh. So a G7 in C minor and a G7 in C major is the same chord. That's because in the minor key, we're going to raise the seventh note. So we have a root position, C minor, dominant seventh, and our figured bass is 5, 7, and then we have a natural. And that's because we have to alter the third of the chord. When you have an accidental, it's always the third of the chord that's raised. In the 2-7, we only have the 7 because there's no alteration to the third. Our next chord is a 5-6-5, which is our first inversion. We don't have to add an accidental above the bass because the bass is the raised leading note. In our next example, we have a 5-4-3 chord. However, in this case, we need to put the 6 there because we need to put that accidental in front of the 6. So when we looked at our 2-4-3, we didn't need the 6, but in this case, it has to be a natural 6-4-3. And our third inversion is a 5 natural 4-2. This is just a bit of a review to get you used to the functional chord symbols, the root quality chord symbols, and the figured bass. So for homework this week, if you could complete page 5, number 1, and send it to me as soon as you can. This will help you start to get writing the chords by following the functional chord symbols. Please don't forget to write the root quality chord symbols above the chords. I look forward to receiving your homework this week, and I hope you have a super duper week. If you have any questions or you want to clarify anything, please let me know because I am here to help you every step of the way. Have a super duper week. Bye.